A while ago, I saw an article on Bleacher Report from Ryan Fowler with the headline, "Every NFL Team's Ultimate Draft Class from the Last 10 Years." And what Ryan did was go through each team's draft class from the past 10 years and say, okay, who was their best first round pick, their best second round pick, so on and so forth through the 7 rounds of the NFL draft. An interesting concept, and interesting enough that I wanted to do the research and see, what would the answer be then for the 32 NHL teams? And that is exactly what we have done. To clarify, my way of deciding who the best player is through Hockey Reference and their point share statistic, which is very similar to WAR in baseball. And we're going to go through all 32 NHL teams and see who has had the best overall ultimate draft class of the last 10 years, of course, ahead of the 2024 NHL draft. It's not all that far away. So let's kick this thing off with the team that you would expect to be in dead last, number 32. It's the NHL's most recent franchise, the Seattle Kraken. Now, they do have 3 players on the board here, 3 rounds worth of players, but as you can see, 4, 5, 6, and 7, they have not had a single player make the NHL yet. Matty Beniers doing some heavy lifting early on as their first round representative, with Riker Evans and Ryan Winterton also represented. But that kind of gives you an idea. Of course, Beniers, Evans, Winterton can be from different drafts, as other people will be as we go throughout the list. At number 31, the NHL's second newest franchise, the Vegas Golden Knights, although they're catching up quickly. First round pick represented by Nick Suzuki, which of course will be a theme throughout this list. Nick Suzuki, of course, traded away to Montreal, where he has found all of that success, but he still counts for Vegas as a Vegas draft pick. Nick Hague as well, strong numbers as a former second round pick. The big issue for Vegas, no 5th round pick represented, and their 7th round pick, Ben Jones, has an even rating so far. At number 30, the Pittsburgh Penguins. Probably no surprise here, given the consistent success they've had up until this most recent season where they missed the playoffs. Their first round pick represented by Kasperi Kapanen, who has been outscored, not literally, but by point shares, from goaltender Philip Gustafsson, who they selected in the 2nd round. Surprisingly to me, they have no 3rd round pick representative. None of their 3rd round picks in the last 10 years have made the NHL, nor have any of their 6th round picks either. It's not that difficult to see why they're so far down the list. At number 29, the Washington Capitals. A pretty similar story to the Penguins in terms of consistent playoff success. In the 1st round, they are represented by goaltender Ilya Samsonov, although when it comes to point shares, it does favor goaltending quite strongly. So you could argue, okay, is Philip Gustafsson really the most valuable pick Pittsburgh had over Kasperi Kapanen? You could make the same argument here with Samsonov, with Vitek Vanacek in the 2nd round. Honorable mention goes to Jakub Vrana for that 1st round pick. But again, another team without a 4th round pick representative, without a 7th rounder, and then Axel Jonsson-Falby and Chase Prisky combining for just 1.9 point shares. It's not difficult to see again why the Caps are this low, and of course when they're being carried by goaltending, and neither goaltender was really there for that long or that successful, it's not that surprising. At number 28, the Colorado Avalanche, and talk about being carried. Cale Makar is the only reason why they are this high up, although over time this list is likely to change. You know, Connor Timmins has had some injury trouble in his career. You know, has he found a full-time home in Toronto? We don't know. But Justus Annuin has really started to look like the goaltender that Colorado thought he could be before running into some injury trouble as well. They don't have too much going on in the bottom 4 rounds, but when you have a gem like Cale Makar, well, hey, you can, kind of do a little bit better than you might have been able to do otherwise. At number 27, the Dallas Stars. First round pick representative is Jake Ottinger. Honorable mention to Miro Heiskanen, another situation where you could either, you could go with either or, essentially. Jason Robertson as the 2nd round pick, my favorite non-Bruin in the NHL. God, he is so good. But then rounds 3 through 7, not much going on, including 4th round pick Rhett Gardner offsetting Dylan Ferguson's score as their 7th round pick. So very much being carried by those first 2 rounds in Dallas. At number 26, the San Jose Sharks, being heavily carried by Timo Meier. Honorable mention to Josh Norris. You could argue, he's kind of up there based off of his performance per games played. Obviously, he's had some injury trouble. Decent 2nd round pick in the form of Mario Ferraro. And while he's not as good lately as it looks like he could have been, Kevin Labanc was a very good 6th round pick as well. But some middling rounds in there. 3rd round especially. 7th round especially with Adam Raska. Good rating for Timo Meier, struggling from there, though. At number 25, the New York Rangers, heavily carried by one player, but it's 4th round pick Igor Shesterkin. Aside from that, Keandre Miller as their 1st round pick has been stellar so far in his career. Will Cooley, he looked pretty good, this year. I think, again, that's a rating you'll continue to see go up. In regards to other players, Morgan Barron, Zach Jones, time will tell. But certainly with a 1st and 4th round pick of that caliber, it's really not a question as to why the Rangers are solid. Again, despite being one of those teams that it feels like consistently have had lower picks, with the exception of Capo Caco and Alexis Lafreniere. Number 24, the Ottawa Senators. Thomas Chabot as their 1st round representative. There is a very strong argument for Brady Tkachuk. And in the 2nd round spot, perhaps controversially, it's Shane Pinto. And based off of his games played and his performance in those games, there is an honorable mention to Mads Sogard, who, again, goalies are rated quite heavily. So you could argue that Ottawa should be a little bit further up. But regardless of who you go with, again, Thomas Chabot, very solid. Drake Batherson, great 4th round pick. And then Joey Decord, primarily off of the strength of this past season with the Seattle Kraken, has Ottawa moving up the ranks and have them sitting just ahead of the New York Rangers on this list. At number 23, the Montreal Canadiens. Now, their 1st round pick representative, that has to hurt a little bit, Mikhail Sergachev, who of course has played the vast majority of his career with the Tampa Bay Lightning after being traded for Jonathan Drouin. Drouin's had an okay career, but obviously hasn't had the same impact as Sergachev. And even their 2nd round pick, Alexander Romanov, of course now with the New York Islanders. They have a few more defensemen on the list in the form of Jordan Harris and Victor Mete, even if Mete didn't quite work out as they thought. Josh Watt, number 5, continue to expect that ranking to go up. He has looked very, very promising. And even Caden Primo, while he's not exactly the second coming of Carey Price, as a lot of people thought he would be, he still has a decent number so far and looks to finally be finding his groove at the NHL level. At number 22, the Detroit Red Wings, the top 2 picks doing the heavy lifting. Dylan Larkin's my pick here, although Moritz Seider, very strong argument for him as well. But Philip Roenick in that 2 spot, still kind of crazy that they elected to move on from him. It's those 2 doing the very heavy lifting. Rounds 3 through 7, you don't have much going on there in Detroit. But when you hit on the top 2 picks, the most valuable, picks, 1st, 2nd rounds, it offsets some of the damage. At number 21, the Winnipeg Jets. The Kyle Connor pick, which, by the way, honorable mention to Nick Ehlers. The Kyle Connor pick hurts me as a Bruins fan, as the 2015 draft will do for the rest of time. From there, not a ton going on. Samberg, Kovacevic, Appleton, they're solid, but no other major selections so far. They're being carried off the strength of Kyle Connor's game, and Kyle Connor can carry you pretty far. At number 20, the Anaheim Ducks. Very interesting list here. Trevor Zegras is their 1st round representative. Even though he wasn't drafted all that long ago, when you're talking about a 10-year scale, kind of shows some of the struggles that they've had there. Marcus Pettersson in that 2 spot, of course now with the Pittsburgh Penguins. Lucas Dostal, though, has looked good. That number will keep going up. Henry Thruin's a complete wild card because he's now on the Sharks. He didn't want to sign with the team. But 5th round pick, do you call it a home run so far for Troy Terry? Pretty close. And even then, Andre Kasha in the 7th round. It is bizarre to me that Andre Kasha was drafted 10 years ago. It feels like so much longer. The guy's only 28 years old. He's had so many injury troubles, but he's been great when he's healthy. I don't know. Very weird career for Ondrej Kase so far. At number 19, the Philadelphia Flyers, led by Travis Konechny and, awkwardly, at the moment at least, Carter Hart. Third round, you do have honorable mention, Felix Sandstrom, perhaps, over Mark Friedman. And in the fifth round, you could go with Sam Ursan over Noah Cates. But outside of that, another team that's very much being carried by the top two picks. At number 18, the Chicago Blackhawks. Now, at number 1 in the first round is Nick Schmaltz. There is an argument for it to be Connor Bedard, based off of his performance in the games played. However, if I put Connor Bedard on this list, Chicago would be much further down because of Bedard's current point share rating as opposed to where he's going to be. I said point share kind of awkwardly. Go back and listen to it. I'm sure it was fun. In the second spot, Alex DeBrincat. Still very shocking to me he's not on that team. God, could you imagine him? I mean, granted, I don't remember the full trade details. All I'm saying is imagine Alex DeBrincat and Connor Bedard in Chicago. Unless you don't like Chicago, in which case don't imagine that. You also have Philip Kurashev in the fourth round. Decent rating, but another team being carried by their top two. At number 17, the Minnesota Wild. Matt Boldy as a first-round pick, very strong so far. Jordan Greenway, I mean, he hasn't quite been, I think what a lot of people thought it could have been, maybe even like an Alex Tuch type, but strong option so far. Kaapo Kähkönen in fourth, again, goalies rated relatively highly, but they are carried off of the strength of Kirill Kaprizov as a fifth-round steal. What more can you say? I mean, to get that value of a Kirill Kaprizov in the fifth round is fantastic. So, solid job by the Wild for the most part. 4 really strong rounds. At number 16, the Florida Panthers. Their first round selection, Aaron Ekblad. There's an honorable mention for Spencer Knight. Limited sample size, but in that time, he was very, very effective. Aside from that, you have Sam Montembeault in the 3 spot, who has really started to find his groove. And from there, it's either a lot of guys that didn't do too much, Denis Malgin, Maxim Mammon, and then some younger guys, Kolachinok, who we haven't seen too much of yet, and Devin Levi, especially now, of course, as a member of the Buffalo Sabres. At number 15, the Los Angeles Kings. Adrian Kempe is their first-round representative. There is a strong shout for Gabe Vilardi. And in the second-round spot, Eric Chernak. A very strong mention to Brock Faber, though. Limited sample size with just a season. But man, Brock Faber has been fantastic so far. Aside from that, Mikey Anderson, strong numbers so far. But the big story here, the 7th-round steal of Matt Roy, propelling the Kings into the top half of this little list that we have going on. At number 14, the New Jersey Devils. Jack Hughes leading the way for the first round picks. Obviously, a bit of a slow start, some injury trouble as well. His effectiveness will just continue to go up. You have Mackenzie Blackwood in that 2 spot. Again, goalies rated relatively highly. The third round, Fabian Zetterlund. You could throw out Nico Dawes into that spot, but again, limited sample size. Same thing in the 5th round. Akira Schmid could be in there over Yegor Sharangovich. And then, of course, a big 6th round steal in Jesper Bratt, really propelling New Jersey into this spot. And really, Colton White, Jeremy Davies, they're not the worst picks in the world. At number 13, the St. Louis Blues. Robert Thomas, Vince Dunn, that's a great way to start. Then you add Jake Wallman, who granted, he had to go to Detroit to kind of find his game. And then you have an argument of goaltenders for the 4th round. Billy Husso is there. Joel Hofer, short, amount of time in the league, small sample size, but he's looked great. And even their lesser picks, again, Nico Mikkola with an 8.3, Sammy Blais, not bad as a 6th round pick, and Tyler Tucker, his numbers will continue to go up. The Blues have done a pretty good job over the last decade. At number 12, the Tampa Bay Lightning, their first round representative, one of the most go away energy guys in the league. I've heard it compared for the wrestling fans out there. Tony D'Angelo has X-Pac heat. Just go the hell away. But he is there, and obviously can't play a lick of defense, but can put up points. Taylor Radish in that 2 spot, an honorable mention to Libor Hayek. And in the 3 spot, Braden Point. which shout out to Connor Ingram as well, but Braden Point gets the nod. Solid picks from there. Ross Colton, Nick Perbix has looked better over the past year or so. Frustrating to see that Tampa has drafted this well, given that they have made 4 Stanley Cup finals, 2015, 2020, 2021, and 2022. In that time, you're not supposed to be able to draft decently well when you consistently have lower picks, and they just haven't cared. At number 11, the Arizona Coyotes, Utah somethings. Time of recording, we don't know. Give me the Utah Yeti or the Utah Super Soakers, please. First round pick, Clayton Keller, phenomenal. JJ Moser, solid as a second rounder. Aiden Hill, Stanley Cup champion. And then 4th and 5th round, Michael Bunting and Connor Garland. Very, very strong for the
Utah hockey team.
Obviously, they have consistently had high picks in this time frame. So to see them outside the top 10 might even be a little bit disappointing, but they have done pretty well. Kicking off the top 10 with the Carolina Hurricanes, another team that has been pretty consistently strong over the last decade. Andrei Svechnikov for the first round, Sebastian Aho for the second. Shout out to Alex Nedeljkovic with the way goalies are rated. Current Boston Bruin Morgan Geekie, Nick Waugh, another Stanley Cup champion. Not much between rounds 5 and 7, literally no pick in the 6th round registers, but those top 2 picks especially do a lot of heavy lifting for Carolina. At number 9, the Buffalo Sabres. This is a sad one in a lot of ways. Jack Eichel leading the way with one of the strongest scorers for a first round pick. But obviously, now with Vegas, has won a Stanley Cup. Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen looking relatively strong so far. Even Jonas Johansson in goal. I mean, he had a reputation for, having some god-awful games, but he hasn't been the worst goalie in the NHL. Will Borgen, decent enough, but 2 good late-round picks in Brandon Hagel and Victor Olofsson helped propel the Sabres into the 9th spot. At number 8, the Vancouver Canucks. In the first round, I'm going with Quinn Hughes. You could easily go with Pedersen as well. Second round, though, Thatcher Demko, obviously a phenomenal pick. The third round representative, this one has to hurt a little bit. Nikita Triamkin. This was a guy that Canucks fans were huge on, and rightfully so. But he goes to the KHL and just doesn't ever come back. In the 5th round, Gustav Forsling, who has skyrocketed in rating over the last couple of years as a member of the Florida Panthers. And how about number 6, Arthur Schilloffs, who will continue to get better as time goes on. Solid job by the Canucks over the last decade. At number 7, the Columbus Blue Jackets. Zach Werenski as a first-round representative, great pick. Kirill Marchenko in the 2nd round, not particularly amazing. Elvis Merzlikins in the 3rd round is great. Shout out to Danil Tarasov as well, who's gotten off to a very good start. Dmitry Voronkov, who was a rookie last year, made a pretty strong impact. That pick will continue to look better. And then, of course, 2 late picks, defensemen on both of them here. Vladislav Gavrikov and Marcus Nudibara helped Columbus out quite a bit. Very good at drafting defensemen, and they did very well with drafting goalies in the 3rd round. At number 6, the New York Islanders. After an incredibly strong season, Noah Dobson becomes the representative of the 1st round. Obviously, you can shout out Matt Barzal. Robin Salo in the 2nd round, but then 3rd and 4th round, Ilya Sorokin. I know he was bad in the playoffs, but Ilya Sorokin and Devon Toews, who, of course, has just turned into, for my money, the modern equivalent of what Dallas Smith was for Bobby Orr with the Bruins in the 70s. Dallas Smith is a guy where it's like, he's going to be overshadowed by who he's next to, and Toews is overshadowed by Cale Makar in a lot of ways, but Devon Toews really allows Cale Makar to be Cale Makar, and Devon Toews, great pick, counts for the Islanders here too. And then, of course, Swedish Sebastian Aho in the 5th round. No points from the 6th or 7th round, but obviously picks in the 1st round. We'll go picks 1, 3, and 4. Obviously, they weren't 3rd overall. You get what I mean. Strong job for the Islanders. At number 5, the Toronto Maple Leafs. Obviously, the 1st round, a lot of possibilities, but they are represented by Austin Matthews, who is well on his way to becoming the greatest American goal scorer of all time. Jesus, he might be more than that by the end of it. Sean Durzi in the 2nd round, obviously, bounced around a bit, went to the Kings. Now with the Coyote Utah bunch of wives and has looked good. Joseph Wall. Who knows what would have happened in round 1 of the playoffs if Joe Wall not gotten hurt. Dakota Joshua in the 5th round. He's found a home in Vancouver. And Pierre Engvall has a home in the Isle with the Islanders and on the Isle because Lou Lamoriello, GM of the year. Lou Lamoriello. Strong showing for Toronto. I don't think anybody's surprised to see them in the top 5. At number 4, the Nashville Predators. This one's maybe a little bit surprising, but they have done well for themselves. Kevin Fiala in the 1st round, Sam Girard in the 2nd, Tommy Novak over the last couple of years makes a decent impact for the 3rd round representation, then Victor Arvidsson and Karl Vejmelka as well, of course with the Coyotes. Nashville's done a really good job. The biggest issue, 2 of the players on this list are left on the team at this stage. At number 3, the Boston Bruins. David Pastrnak doing so much heavy lifting here. Can't discount Ryan Lindgren for the 2nd round either, even though, of course, he has done most of his work in the NHL with the New York Rangers after being included in the Rick Nash trade. You got Dan Vladar and then Jeremy Swayman. My goodness, Jeremy Swayman, who has just been absolutely incredible, but no doubt, no denying that the Bruins are here off with the strength of David Pastrnak. So at least you probably do, that it's an all Alberta top 2. It's just a matter of who goes where. But before we get to that, a friendly reminder, hey, if you're enjoying the video, and you should be, you're like 20 minutes into it, drop a like, subscribe, second channels, all the twitch.television, all the things, please and thank you. At number 2, we have the Calgary Flames, led by the previously aforementioned Matthew Tkachuk as a 1st round pick. That has to hurt. Feels a little bit better with Rasmus Andersson being a very strong 2nd rounder, but then it is a swift kick through the uprights. Adam Fox in the number 3 spot, and obviously Calgary wasn't the only team that Adam Fox spurned, but that hurts, certainly. Andrew Mangiapane as well in that 6th spot. Time will tell in regards to Dustin Wolf as a 7th round pick, but not having a 5th round pick hurts Calgary a little bit too much here. At number 1, perhaps no surprise, the Edmonton Oilers, led by Connor McDavid, who has a higher score than any player that we are considering here at this time. I mean, he's a Hall of Famer now. He was a Hall of Famer before this past season. At number 2, Ryan McLeod, so far, but then Stuart Skinner in that 3 spot. And then you see down the order, leading up to John Marino as a really good 6th round pick, it's consistency. They don't have a single round missing, which a lot of teams do. Every single player is at least at a 3.8. And then obviously you have the superstar of superstars with Connor McDavid in that number 1 spot. The Edmonton Oilers. Imagine that. Now do something with it, given that, it's Connor McDavid. Do something. So with that, everybody, that will do it for this one. I love dumb ideas like this. Hopefully you do too. We'll be back soon at some point with some type of video. Who knows? I love you. Brush your damn teeth. It's important.